Today's video is inspired by conversations and feedback from our YouTube community, specifically around KDP's binding and paper quality, and concerns around the types of packaging that KDP and Lulu use when shipping journals. With that in mind, we'll be unboxing journals from both KDP and Lulu so you can see the type of packaging that was used in the condition that they arrived in. We'll also compare the cover vibrancy, we'll review the binding, and we'll test out the paper quality. And since I have a past experience with using Printify, and we're already going through this review process, we'll include Printify journals too, which may be helpful for our community members who are looking for journal examples from alternative print-on-demand sellers. All right, let's get started so you can decide if one of these options would be a good fit for you. We'll start off by looking at the type of packaging used and the conditions that those packages arrived in. Here you can see Amazon's packaging to the very left, and then Lulu and Printify on the right. And here's a shot of the back of the packages. And here's what they look like from the side, so you can see how much cushion is actually built into each package. All right, we're going to start with the unboxing, and we'll start with Printify. This is Printify's package. It opens pretty easily, and then you can see that there's plenty of space on the interior portion. The first journal we'll look at is here on the right-hand side. It's a spiral bound journal. Both of these journals are available on Printify through their partner district photo. So each one is plastic wrapped to ensure that it stays clean and for individual resale. The plastic wrap comes off pretty easy, and then you can see a nice cover here on the front. It's hard plastic, but the colors are still really vibrant. It still looks really professional. Now we're going to take a look inside. It's pretty standard paper. Of course, this is a smaller journal / notebook, but it looks like I expected it to. Let's take a look at the other journal. The plastic comes off fairly easily. I appreciate that it's individually wrapped just for resale purposes, but that is extra plastic. And you can see right away that there's damage on the lower end of this journal. I'm not sure if that damage happened before transit. I would hope that there's quality control before these items go out the door. So it's possible that it did happen in transit, and if that's the case, then the packaging material that was used is not sufficient. Colors are absolutely vibrant. I like the printer of that district photo uses, and the interior looks nice. It's got this kind of black covering there, and the paper is standard, very similar to the other journal. And then the back looks good. The logo looks good. The printing looks good. It's sturdy. It in general has a professional feel to it. It's just that damage that occurred. And I don't know if this type of journal is susceptible to damage like that, whereas this plastic cover for this spiral bound journal is less susceptible. That could be true too. Before we move on to Lulu, I want to show you a journal that I previously created through Printify using a different print partner, which is Spoke Custom Products. This is also a spiral bound journal, and it's a little bit bigger than the other one. The paper is standard, very similar. It's got a pouch in the back. You could put pens and things like that. It's pretty handy. But the front and back covers are really thin, kind of like a thick cardboard. So it does feel flimsy. It's flexible, which is kind of nice, but it has a flimsy feel, and it doesn't have a sheen or any kind of protective coating on the front. So definitely not water resistant like this plastic one would be, water resistant, a significant size difference. As it pertains to color, this is very accurate to an actual painting that I created. The printing quality here for district photo is on point. And over here, it's darker. It's not quite like this. It's very saturated, I guess is the word I would say. Very dark colors, and not as true to the actual artwork. This is a screenshot of Printify's website, and we're looking at their catalog for journals and notebooks. And we're just looking at a handful of them. The ones we're seeing are from the United States. And this is an example, spiral bound journal. That's the one we were just looking at with kind of the flimsier covers. That's from Spoke Custom Products. And then District Photo is the print partner. This is that journal that was damaged in transit. This is just so you can see what I'm talking about when I'm referring to Printify and I'm talking about their print partners. We're going to move on to Lulu, but before we do, here's a side-by-side of the Spoke journal and the 2 district photo journals. Let's move on to Lulu. So we're going to start with an unboxing. I like that Lulu's journals come in this sturdy cardboard box. I haven't had any journals arrive with damage or had any reports of journals arriving with damage so far, and I appreciate it. It takes a little bit of effort to get into the box, but with that handy tab on the back there, it's fairly easy to do. It's got a couple layers of protection there, a couple layers of cardboard, and we'll take a look at the journal next. This is just the packing slip that comes with it, which is nice, and it shows the package coming from Harley Bird Design and then being shipped to the customer. This is to give you an idea of the binding and the front and back cover. Everything looks good. It's your standard journal with a nice glossy sheen. The paper looks exactly as I would expect it to. Of course, when you're creating journals, you can choose the interior here. I've chosen lined pages, but you could do blank pages or bullet journals. This is just what I've done here. Or if you're printing a book, it could be words on the interior or a planner on the interior. We're going to move on to KDP next. There isn't too much here to say about Lulu. The journals look exactly like you would expect them to. Now we're moving on to KDP. So this is the packaging that this journal arrived in. This gives you an interior shot so you can see kind of how well it's protected. And then there's the journal. It looks very similar to the way I would expect it to. There's a little bit of glue there that was on that page just right as I opened up to it, so it stuck a little bit, but nothing too bad. You can see the pages unfold freely, and it has a glossy cover, both front and back. In general, it looks good in that way. Now we're looking at the side of the binding here, and it's off center, which is my error. I created these just recently so I could do this video, this comparison, and I was slightly off. So this is not Amazon's fault. This would be mine. The colors look pretty good. It's not quite as good as Lulu's color quality, but this is actually a pretty good lighting shot here. And you can see the detail looks good. Now it's hard to tell in that video, but here's some damage that's on this on the binding here. And this is very common with KDP journals. And I think it's because of the packaging that's used and they get damaged in transit. It's possible that this damage occurs before it's actually packaged and goes out the door. But this is very consistent and it looks just kind of like the package was just handled a little roughly. Honestly, is the way it appears to me. On that note, I want to show you a past example. This is in one of my previous videos where we cover damage just like this, but this is a different journal. This is not one that I sell, but one that I was kind of playing around with to see possibilities. And when it arrived, it had a blue ink streak here, which is right on the lower portion of the journal. And when you look at the side binding, you can see that there's another blue streak. So this streak extends over into the front of the journal. And then this upper streak here starts in the binding. And then this is a crease that is right across the binding here. And just for perspective, here's a side shot of the whole side of the journal. So you can see it's all in this lower area. And then here's a shot of that damage from the back of the journal. So you can see the blue streak extends across the back of the journal here in both places. And it's hard to make out, but there's some damage here and it's actually easier to see from this more far away shot. And this is the type of packaging that has been used for other orders that I've placed through Amazon's KDP for other journals that I've created. They come in this type of bubble packaging. And as you can see, it's really, really thin. The brown packaging that the journal arrived in for this most recent order looked like it was more sturdy, but you could see there was still some of that damage on the spine of the journal, but it didn't have any of the ink streaks, which I would say, I think it's about 30% of the Amazon journals have damage like that, either the ink streaking or the binding kind of getting scuffed up and damaged like that. So it's definitely not every journal. But it's something to know that can occur. So here's the two journal covers for KDP and Lulu, and it's a side-by-side just so you can compare them if you'd like to. Basically, the colors on the Lulu's journal are slightly more color accurate and a little bit more vibrant, but you really wouldn't notice unless you were looking at them in person and doing, a real analytical side-by-side comparison. For another comparison, here's a different journal, one through KDP, one through Lulu, and one through Printify, which is the most recent journal that just kind of came in with that damage down there. Just so you can see kind of the print quality, these are different printers. The Printify and the Lulu are, although not exactly the same, if you're looking at them in person, you'll see differences, but they're more similar in quality and more similar in vibrancy. And KDP, although it is beautiful in person, just in terms of the colors coming through, it's not as vibrant as the Lulu and the Printify version. So this is my best attempt to try to give you a close-up so you can see the differences in terms of print. So Printify, that version comes out a little pinker. This one comes out kind of a pink red, which is closer to the actual paint that was used. And this is the KDP version, which again, it still looks good. Nobody would know the difference if they were to receive a journal like this, unless they were to compare it with the original art or with another journal made by another company. You really wouldn't know. It would still look it would still, the colors would still pop off the journal. But you can kind of see a difference. This is a little more muted and a little murkier in places. So you really would have to pay close attention to kind of catch some of these details, unless you're the artist. Then of course, something like that you might be more prone to see or to notice. So looking at the interior, this is a KDP journal and this is a Lulu journal, and they're just sandwiched together so you can compare the two pages side by side. And I use several different types of writing, markers, pens, pencils, so that you could see how they bleed through. Basically, what you're looking at here is a typical writing pen, a permanent marker, a highlighter. This is a Sharpie, colored pencil, regular pencil, Crayola marker, and a crayon. And it's the same thing here on the Lulu side. So then down here is the back side of those pages, so you can see how those markers and pens bleed through. And right away, you'll notice that the Sharpie comes through strongly. So does the Crayola marker, the permanent pen, and then the writing pen. And it's pretty consistent on both sides. Just so we're really thorough about our review of paper quality, I held those two pages up to the light individually so you could see what comes through. And although the Lulu paper appears to be more dense, the markers and the pens still come through pretty strongly. So I would say the paper qualities between these two are very similar. Just so there isn't confusion, I want to show you what it's like to write in a journal, a KDP journal in this example, with a ballpoint pen. So here's a basic journal entry for the purposes of this video. I wrote down a quote, and then if you flip that page over, you can see there's an indentation, a light indentation from the pen, but there's no bleed through. And if you held that page up to the light, this is the back side of the page held up to the light, you could see the writing coming through. But this is pretty typical. If you took a book that you read and you held a page up to the light, you would see the words on both sides of that page. But if you're just reading a book like you normally would, you can't see the writing. It's just like this. So I would say this paper is pretty standard paper, and appears to be similar for sure between KDP and Lulu. If we look at Printify, there's the three journals that we compared today. We've got the district photo journal here and another district photo spiral bound journal in the center. And then this is the spoke spiral bound journal over here on the right hand side. And then looking at these back pages, you can see, of course, the Sharpie comes through, the permanent marker and the regular pen and the Crayola marker come through for both spoke and the district journal small spiral bound. But when we're looking at the other district photo journal, and this is the one that had the damage along the bottom, the paper appears to hold up a little bit better. It's really just the Sharpie that you see coming through. So that paper quality appears to be just slightly better than the rest. Just to be consistent, if you held those pages up to the light, this is what you would see. I personally use both KDP and Lulu journals every day. I haven't run into an issue with the binding or the paper as long as I use a ballpoint pen or a pencil. Having said that, I think there could be a real gap between my experience and the experience of other people in different circumstances. For example, KDP's print and binding quality could vary by location and facility. Shipping materials that we looked at may not always be the shipping material that's used. And I don't know if the paper shown in the journals today would work well for uses other than journaling. There's a lot to consider today, so I want to share a couple of videos that you may find helpful as you're continuing to look at your situation and whether these companies that we looked at today could be a good fit for you. So this first video is all about Amazon KDP perks and comparing Amazon to Lulu. So as you may already know, Amazon has significant perks to consider, like free shipping, ease of use, and marketplace traffic. And you can learn more about these in this video, Amazon KDP versus Lulu Express, which one is better? Having said that, Lulu is popular for good reason, even though they may not be the right fit for everyone. You can check out this video, Lulu Press versus the Lulu Direct app with Shopify, to explore the many pros and cons of choosing Lulu. This may be a helpful resource for you to figure out if Lulu's right, and if so, which one you should choose. And check out the comment section for both of these videos. People from our YouTube community often share their insights and perspectives, and it can be a good opportunity to learn more. So on that note, if you have experience or perspective on printing a book, a coloring book, a planner, or a journal, please share in the comments below so we can continue to learn from each other. As always, I appreciate you and I thank you so much for watching.